Hello, my name is Darrell Pruitt. I'm with the Sugar Hill Historic Preservation Society, and I'm excited to have some time to sit down with City Councilman Brandon Hembree and talk about Sugar Hill and its history. Brandon, before we get into some Sugar Hill history, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Darrell. So, Brandon Hembree, I grew up here in Gwinnett County and actually graduated from Burtmore High School, but I didn't move to Sugar Hill until about 15 years ago. So I'm married to a wonderful lady named Tara. Don't have any children, but we have lots of pets. We have a dog and several cats, and we're really excited and love calling Sugar Hill our home.
That's great. You're really deeply involved in the city and the community. I know you have a great sense of community. Where do you think that came from?
Well, I think it's just natural. I think it's natural for everybody to want to have a connection to their community, and I can't say that I always had that. When I first moved here, I moved here about 15 years ago, as I said before. I really wasn't engaged in the community at all, but once I started to really get involved, that's really when it started to feel like home. And I'll never forget, I was walking up Level Creek one day, and there was a house for sale, and I was curious about how much the house was selling for. I happened to pick up one of the flyers, and there was some information on there regarding a gold mine on the property, and I reached out to the homeowners, and they were kind enough to let me go inside and see the gold mine. And that's really when I became excited about Sugar Hill's history. And it kind of dawned on me at the time that even though I wasn't from Sugar Hill, living in the community, I still had that connection to the history, even though I wasn't necessarily involved or connected directly to it. And I realized that I think most people are like that.
That's a good thing to kind of spur your interest, was finding out about the gold mine history of Sugar Hill. How do you think the Historic Preservation Society fits into the building a sense of community here?
Yeah, so I think history plays an important role in every community, and I always say this, I think history has an amazing way of connecting the past, present, and the future. And I think when people are involved in history and they understand the background of their community, I think it really helps closely tie them together. And I think that that's the role that the society plays. So I think one of the responsibilities that a city council member has is to find ways for residents to be engaged in their community. And the society is one aspect of that, the youth council, the women's club, all those various organizations that we have as a city, I think, help people to get involved and to get connected with each other.
Thank you, Brandon. You talked about the interest of history that spurred you here at Sugar Hill. Did you have a larger interest in history going back, or is this something new for you?
I think I did. I've always been interested in history, and probably more so than your normal person. Although I found that as you get older, you become more interested in history, and I don't think that's any different than the perceptions that I've gathered from other people in the community. But yes, I always loved history. Never really had the opportunity to get involved with the Historic Preservation Society or something similar to what we have here in Sugar Hill. So when the group was created, it was a really good opportunity, I think, for me.
Well, you have been integral, obviously, to everything that the Society's done, and we appreciate you doing that. And I will say that as you get older, you do get more interested. Someone much older than you, I will say that you do get more interested in it the older you get. If you had someone that was interested in the history of Sugar Hill, and they ask you, what's historic about Sugar Hill, what would you tell them?
Well, that's a great question, and I get it from a lot of different people. We don't have too many historical assets. So we don't have old buildings like some communities have. We have some old cemeteries. which are pretty neat to have in our community. But mainly what we have are stories from people that have lived here in the past or that have lived here their entire lives. And to me, that's really the essence of Sugar Hill's history and why I think it's so important to catch that through video recordings or through photos or various things that people might want to donate to our community. And I think that is what makes Sugar Hill different from other cities like Beaufort, for example. Beaufort has a very historic downtown with lots of old buildings and lots of old assets. They're physical things that you can point to as belonging to Beaufort's history. We don't have a whole lot of that, and so we have to try to capture that in different ways.
One of the things that is unique to us in a lot of ways is the history of the gold mines. Have you found that to be something that has sparked interest in our history?
Absolutely, and I think that people in our community have known about it for years. In fact, some of the people that have lived here their entire lives, they remember hearing about the gold mines. There's some people that actually remember going into the gold mines when they were children. But the thing that's always interested me about Sugar Hill is that majority of the people that live here now, they didn't grow up here in Sugar Hill. So in a sense, all of the things that the society is doing is helping rediscover our history. And so several years ago, when the gold mine was rediscovered on Level Creek Road, articles were starting to be written about it, and the community became really interested in that part of our history. And I think as the community really started to go into great detail about that history, they discovered that that's actually something that's very unique to Gwinnett County. We were really kind of the center of that gold mining activity for our county many years ago.
That's very interesting. Thank you. If you were walking through Sugar Hill, what would be the things you would want someone to see if you took someone on a walk through the city?
Yeah, so I'll just start in our downtown area because I think that's really the center of our community. It's certainly becoming the center of our community with all the new development that we're having in our downtown. But I think one of our more important assets is the historic cemetery that we have right across from City Hall. For years that was affiliated with Sugar Hill Church, or Sugar Hill Baptist Church, as many of the old-timers will refer to it as. But if you were to walk through that cemetery and you were to just look at some of the names like Sutterth and Bice, you would discover some of the very prominent families in our community that made Sugar Hill what it is today. And there's really some very, very interesting stories and characters in that cemetery. And that's where I would have people kind of start and just become acquainted with our past through the people that have passed on to a different world, but that were so impactful for our city. And then next, I would certainly go and I would visit the old Shelley Howerton home, which is the oldest home in our community. Some think it dates to around the 1860s, and I think there are certainly some parts of that home that are that old. But that home has been refurbished. It's where the Shelley family presided for several generations. They were the main operators of the gold mines here in Sugar Hill. And then, of course, just south of that is property that the city owns that will at some point in time become Level Creek Park. And that actually has one of the old gold mines on it. And you can go in the gold mine with some supervision from the city. But it's a neat place to visit, and it really shows you what Sugar Hill was like in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. There weren't a lot of people living here, and the families that were here in this area were primarily involved in farming or in gold mining activities.
Okay. What is one thing that most people would not know about Sugar Hill's history?
Yeah, so I think one of the more interesting stories is about how we started as a community. So we were formed as a city in 1939, and that's when we acquired the name. Initially, we were the town of Sugar Hill. We eventually evolved to calling ourselves the city of Sugar Hill. But prior to that, this area was known as the Sugar Hill Militia District. But during the early 1800s, we were called Oarsville. That was the name of this community, and it was named after a family that owned a mercantile along the Chattahoochee River, where the Georgia Highway 20 bridge crosses over right now. And so I think that is one of the kind of undiscovered aspects of our history that a lot of people don't know about.
I would agree with that. Very few people know. That's very interesting.
That's right. And there's some oars that are actually buried in the cemetery, and there's some descendants of that family that are still around. But in the early 1830s, that was when this part of Gwinnett County was opened up for settlement. And so the Chattahoochee River was literally the dividing line between uncivilized Georgia and civilized Georgia, or what people thought of as uncivilized Georgia at that time. And the Oars, they were responsible for selling goods and various things to the people that lived in this part of Gwinnett County at the time.
That's very interesting, Brandon. You are a fount of knowledge. We're very fortunate to have you and have your knowledge here. Is there anything else you'd like to let me ask you this other question. If someone wanted to get involved in learning more about the history, helping us preserve our history, what would be their first step?
Sure. So they could get involved with the society. The society meets once a month here at City Hall, and I think that's always a good way to get engaged. And then just reading about our history. Here in the History Museum, we have a number of books, including one on the history of Gwinnett County, that people can come and borrow from us. And that's another great way to learn about the community. And then I find that when people just talk to their neighbors, they might discover someone that's lived here their entire life. And those are great ways of rediscovering history that people, for whatever reason, have gone through their entire lives without telling others about. And I think just that engagement with others in your community, I think that naturally opens up conversation and allows for some of this history to be discovered.
Well, we have a history museum now, but as I understand it, we are going to have a new one at some point in the not too distant future. If someone in the community has some items they would like to donate or some information they'd like to provide, what's the best way to do that?
Just reach out to the city. So you can call customer service, or you can reach out to Jane Whittington, who is our city clerk, or you can reach out to any member of the Historic Preservation Society, and they would be happy to take whatever item or photograph that you have. We've gotten a lot over the years, and in fact, I think anything that's in our display cabinet has been donated by somebody in the community. And we will be having a new museum that will open, I want to say probably 18 to 24 months from now. It'll be a much larger space, and we are in the process of determining a method to take more things in from the community. So if you're someone in the community that has something, we would really encourage you to get involved and to give us your items so that we can plan how to display that in our museum. And in addition to that, the city is working on digitally archiving all of the photos that we have received, and they're in the process of actually creating a website, so the public will be able to go online and to view a lot of these items and a lot of these photographs digitally, which I think will be a pretty exciting thing to be able to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Is there anything else you can think of you'd like to say or share with us?
No, I would just encourage people to not only think about the known aspects of our history as a community, but the unknown aspects. And some of those things are the diversity that we have in our community in modern days, but we've also had a lot of diversity in our past. And I want to point out one aspect of that. several years ago, there was a lady in our community that passed away at the age of 98. Her name was Charlotte Howerton, and she was a descendant of the original Shelleys that settled here in the Sugar Hill area. And Charlotte was an amazing woman. She was a Woman Air Corps member during World War II, was well-traveled, was an artist. She just did many, many great things for this community. And I would just encourage people to just get beyond our known history and to think about individuals like Charlotte that really made our community what it is today.
That is fascinating. We really do live in a great time and in a great city. Councilman Hembree, I want to thank you for your time. It's been very informative.
Thank you.